Welcome to this new video. Most people don't realize this, but the way someone speaks and the way they explain their choices reveals the belief that shape their life. I know it sounds dramatic, but trust me on this. It reveals not the beliefs that they believe that they have, but the ones that actually run the show. And this is massive. So Khloé Kardashian is a really clear example of this. And before you turn this off and run away, I recommend that you please stay, because this is a very common pattern that I've seen on many of the people in my life and in my clients. So please don't worry too much about who we are talking about here. Focus on what you can learn, okay? Without further ado, let's get going. Okay, and before we continue, just remember that we are not here to judge people. We're not here to judge the public person that we are referencing. We are here to learn to recognize patterns. It's easier to see them in others, but then we try to think how they might be applying to us, okay? So from that perspective, let's proceed now. I have seen and heard a couple of interviews from Khloé, and as someone that I find interesting, not as a person, but as the greater psychology or the patterns behind her, how she operates, why she does this, the things she does, and perhaps why she says or acts a certain way. So there are two interviews that stood out to me, where she was talking about things that at first they may not seem connected at all. But to me, that I'm trained to spot these patterns, I started putting them together and I saw a bigger pattern emerge. So on the first one, she was answering a question about being a control freak, and her words were like, yes, I am a control freak, and I take it as a compliment, right? Like, yeah, I'm a total control freak, and yeah, I wear that label with pride, right? It makes me happy. It's a compliment. I'm a control freak and it's great. Okay. That obviously for someone like me, it stood with me. And on a separate interview, I think it was, someone was asking her about her kid, her eldest kid, I think it was, going to school. And she said, yeah. My kid, I don't remember the name, but my kid started school, and I struggle with letting her go. So she was saying how she drives her kid to school and lingers outside the school crying in her car. And the kid actually also struggles with the separation, letting go of her mom, and she cries as she walks into school. And obviously for her as the mom, seeing her daughter crying, it makes her sad, but she almost said like it's a shared moment, like lingering, crying, and even she felt comforted by the fact that her daughter was struggling too. She felt a bit easier knowing that she wasn't the only one crying and struggling with letting go, and it made her feel a bit better that her daughter struggled as well, because it almost spoke about their bond and how close they are. Okay? So these two moments to me are very human moments, right? They can appear as, okay, yes, it's common for parents to struggle as their kids start to go to kinder or childcare or school, and how many people out there are happy being control freaks and owning the label, right? It's very human. But when we zoom out of what she was saying and we start connecting these patterns together, a bigger picture emerges. And that's what I want to discuss with you now. So the deeper pattern here that I want us to look at is control. Difficulty with change, extreme difficulty with change, right? In the school drop-off case. Staying in familiar situations longer than it feels good. These are not behaviors that highlight strength or resilience. This is all about safety, okay? When a person doesn't feel safe internally, from within, they will look to create safety externally, in their environment, in their relationships, right? How? Well, through predictability, repetition, control, holding on, okay? So let's take it a bit deeper now. If your nervous system learned early on from childhood that things can change suddenly, that love can be taken away, that stability is never guaranteed, they don't crave excitement. They crave safety. Okay, let's look at it again. It's all to do with almost connecting sudden change to chaos, to our nervous system being in that fight or flight, right? Things change so much, and maybe that means that I'm going to lose love, that I'm going to lose someone that I love through change. So that stability is never guaranteed. Your nervous system tenses. And so what you prime your subconscious to start creating and looking for is certainty. Certainty feels safe, right? Control becomes a way to calm the nervous system. This can show up as needing things done a certain way, struggling with separation, staying in relationships that hurt only because at least they are predictable. At least I know what I'm getting here. So I hold on. Maybe forgiving behavior that crosses boundaries, but not because you don't see the red flag, but because the unknown feels even more dangerous than the pain you're already in. That is a very important pattern to get to know. If you think you could be in a similar place subconsciously as Khloé, if you are a control freak and love being one, then maybe have a look at this and share this video with someone who may be a control freak that you know. Tag them, share them, have them watch it and see what they think. Okay, so I also wanted to take a moment and go very superficially on something that Khloé has been known for, which is perhaps a possible lack of self-worth. So people often assume that lack of self-worth comes first, right? She's been called a doormat many times. Let's not pretend that we don't know. But more often than not, it's actually the other way around. When someone doesn't feel safe being alone, When connection feels like survival, self-worth gets eroded. People actually start to put that safety above feeling worthy. Okay? So because your value becomes tied to keeping what feels safe around you, even if it hurts, your self-worth, you are subconsciously happier to feel less worthy but safer. Okay? As I always say, the subconscious gets formed, all these patterns, mostly in childhood. And so it's not something that we choose. It's not that we make the conscious choice to let go of our self-worth. It comes from a very primal need for survival and gets imprinted into our subconscious as a child. So this now, as adults, we may look at these patterns and be like, that's crazy. Crazy, makes no sense. Like, girl, what are you doing? But these are decisions, subconscious decisions that we make when we are little. And obviously, we don't have a lot of information or even experience to make those decisions, and that's why we end up where we end up. But also that's why then we can do the work to rewire these patterns and move away from them. Okay, but this is why change can feel terrifying for some people, even when change would be the healthier thing to do, right? And why control can feel comforting for some of us, even if it's exhausting, right? But at least it's predictable, and predictability makes us feel safe, so we take it. Okay? Just remember that if you recognize yourself in some of these patterns, there's nothing wrong with you. I want to say that again. If you recognize yourself in some of these patterns, there is nothing wrong with you. Okay? Your system had to learn to protect you the best way it knew how. Right? Remember, this is from very early years. You didn't know what you know today. You had no say, conscious say in this. Okay, you just copied the behaviors that you saw around and possibly just did the best you could in those moments and made some decisions, some values aligned at a time that you didn't know what you know now. Okay, so let's just take a breath here. Let's not start making things worse by blaming ourselves or judging anybody. Okay, let's just take it easy. Now you have awareness of this pattern, and then you can start to work to create safety within, so you don't need to try and create it by controlling the environment around you. All right, but yeah, this is a very common pattern that I see a lot in famous people, but also in everyday, very real humans who didn't know better. Okay, real safety doesn't come from control. I want you to remember that. It comes from learning that you can handle change, that you can survive uncertainty, and that you don't need to hold on so tightly to be okay. That you can let go and be okay. Then you can be, at the center of the hurricane, the tornado, and be the calm and have the storm around you do what it may, right? But you don't need to try and control and hold on so tightly, right? Remember that. And as I always say, if you want to understand the patterns shaping your choices, the ones that you didn't consciously choose, please subscribe to this channel where I break down the patterns in a way that help you see yourself with more clarity, but also with more compassion. Okay, so please, if you feel like this video can help someone that you know, feel free to share it with them or tag them. Subscribe and like, it helps me a lot. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.